Investment banking recruiting. The recruiting process. Most analysts get hired full-time through their junior summer internships. Therefore, it is extremely important to try to get an investment banking summer internship your junior summer. Full-time recruiting is mostly used to fill up spots from summer internships. Banks may not take all their summer interns due to performance reasons. Other times, some interns may choose not to return, either to trade up to a better investment bank or decide to leave investment banking altogether. Imagine this. Each bulge bracket investment bank hires approximately 100 to 120 analysts across IBD, sales and trading, and equity research. Assume there's approximately 15 large investment banks. That's about 1,500 to 1,800 total investment banking analysts per class. Target versus non-target schools. Each bank has their own list of schools that they go to for on-campus recruiting. This is because there is generally a strong relationship between a school, its rankings, and where that school places its students. Each investment bank does not have the same target list of schools that they go to for on-campus recruiting, but there is definitely a lot of overlap. Other schools that are added to their school list for each investment bank generally has a history of being recruited there. For example, a very senior investment banker may be alumni of a particular school. Therefore, if you go to one of the non-target schools or schools that does not have the same consistent relationships with the bulge bracket banks to recruit on an annual basis, you are more likely than not having to recruit through networking a bit more. There are many different people that you can network with. For example, bankers and human resources, alumni, attend networking sessions to meet other candidates that may be able to help you if they have a network, and attending recruiting events. The other thing to consider is the geographical location of your school and the regional offices of an investment bank. The reason why a lot of East Coast schools recruit really well is because of their proximity to New York City, which is the financial center of the world. If you are, for example, in the Midwest, it is worth your time to look at investment banks that are based in the Midwest, or look at regional offices, for example, in Chicago for investment banking at a bulge bracket bank. If you end up getting a full-time offer from a regional office, it is possible to transfer to New York or use that offer to lateral to another bank in New York if that is your final destination. What matters most for this recruiting process is what's on your resume. And it's not necessarily everything you write down, because there's so many things to look over. Each resume only gets no more than 30 seconds. So what really matters is your school name, your GPA, and your work experience. Extracurriculars are good complements, but they are not substitutes for the items just mentioned. Also, mistakes stand out, so make sure there's no spelling or formatting errors. Do your best to get a financial internship experience and extracurriculars onto your resume. For example, do fall or spring internships if they're available at your school. Obviously, try to get freshman and sophomore experiences if you're able to plan ahead. Other things, such as unpaid internships, are also worth your time. For example, if you get an internship at Morgan Stanley Wealth Management or Bank of America Merrill Lynch Wealth Management, that is still a large bulge bracket name on your resume that you can use when you interview for junior internships. Let's take a look at the competitive landscape in investment banking. So here, for example, you have the University of Pennsylvania undergrad class of 2022 post-graduation full-time employment. This information is available online on their career website. What this shows you is the industry placement for every student that graduated from a particular class at UPenn. What you can see here is that 31%, or 408 individuals, graduated into financial services. Next is consulting at 21%, or 276 students. Clearly, finance is a big focus for the University of Pennsylvania. What you'll see further is that for the Wharton Business School specifically, the Wharton undergraduate class of 2022 has an even larger emphasis on financial services. This is the Wharton Undergraduate Class of 2022 post-graduation full-time employment. You'll see specifically 249 or 56% of Wharton students go into financial services. Now, financial services is not just investment banking. In addition to investment banking, there's buy-side jobs available too. For example, some students recruit directly into private equity, hedge funds, and venture capital. But for the most part, these opportunities are hard to come by and may not be accessible for everybody. So, for the most part, financial services will probably more likely than not be investment banking opportunities. The takeaway message from all this is to understand that 408 students from a particular class at UPenn went into financial services, of which the majority went into investment banking from that 408 number. So if you remember earlier, there's approximately 1,500 to 1,800 investment banking jobs, of which, let's say maybe 300 to 400 or so students are from UPenn. It's for some of these placement results that make these schools so popular and so competitive to get into. Don't worry though, everything that they have covered, we will cover and then some. How to recruit. The best way to get an investment banking job is to go through a summer internship in investment banking. This is usually done your junior summer. From a summer internship, do a good job and get a full-time offer. Freshman and sophomore summers are important too, as they are used to build your resume. There are freshman and sophomore programs for diversity, which includes underrepresented minorities and female recruiting. Other things such as 1 and 3 day programs, for example, BMO Capital Markets Shadow Program, will also be great to put down investment banking names on your resume. How do I get a summer internship without any experience? There are various ways to get a job with a big financial name or a smaller one that has relevant financial experience. For example, as mentioned before, many wealth management jobs are available for summer internships and also throughout the year, where you can do a part-time fall or spring internship in wealth management. There are also smaller companies that do valuation work or boutique investment banks that will give you the relevant experience for you to talk to during your interview process for that big junior summer internship. As mentioned before, regional offices may also be a great way to break into investment banking, as in theory, there are fewer people applying to regional offices than there are in New York offices, even given the number of spots in regional offices. Attending school events will be very important, as that is the most direct contact between your school and an investment bank. Usually that relationship is managed through the career services, where they have a point person in contact with alumni or program directors on the recruiting side of an investment bank. Make sure that when you go to these recruiting events that you reach out to the alumni, HR, and any other investment bankers that are part of the recruiting process. This is a numbers game. The more people that you speak to, the more likely that you're going to have a chance encounter with someone that is interested in you and that wants to see you succeed and will try to push your resume and your profile forward. In order for something like that to happen, you have to be well prepared. Understand why you want to get into investment banking, understand the industry, understand the people that you're speaking with. At the end of the day, these are people with emotions and feelings, so it's really important that you strike a conversation where there is a connection. Perhaps, for example, you both like the same sports, or you happen to be in the same clubs when that alumni was at school. Other things to think about: stay on top of the recruiting deadline. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you miss a deadline, you may miss a very big opportunity. The deadlines differ from school to school, and it will depend on specific deadlines given your career services for that application process. The reason why the deadlines are different is because an investment bank may try to speak with many different schools and therefore have tiered different schedules depending on that relationship and that timing with that particular school and investment bank. But that also means if you happen to go to a really good school and all your friends at the other great schools are getting interviews and you haven't heard yet, you might be a little behind. Generally speaking, full-time recruiting happens at the beginning of the year. Firms are looking to fill any spots not taken by summer internships. Summer recruiting has historically been during the second semester, but in more recent years, that deadline has been pushed up closer and closer towards the end of the first semester through winter break. I would recommend that once you find out summer internship recruiting is in full swing, that you check your career services application portal almost weekly to make sure that you are not missing any deadlines and that you are on top of any new opportunities that arise. I have seen before, sometimes job postings will be put up last minute and have a very short window before a final submit deadline. Full-time recruiting is a lot harder but doable. You must have good relationships with investment bankers and recruiters. For on-cycle recruiting, the key is to get in early, as again, there are a limited number of full-time spots. Off-cycle recruiting is a thing. There's many reasons why an investment bank might have a one-off position. For example, someone might have decided to not go through with investment banking for whatever reason that may be. So, potentially during your second semester, or as the year gets closer towards the summer when a full-time class is looking to start, there could be one-off opportunities that you should stay on top of. For those that have graduated or are working in the industry, there is an opportunity to laterally recruit within investment banking. There has to be a specific angle. The most likely angle is that you are an industry expert. For example, if you happen to work at a healthcare company or say an insurance company for 2 or 3 years, your argument can be you want to work on the deal side, the business side of that industry, and you happen to be the healthcare or the insurance expert. Networking and having friends in investment banking will also help because they will be able to let you know when, say, a specific group at their investment bank, or even better, their own group, is looking to hire for a one-off full-time analyst. The other way to break in after graduation is to get an MBA and come into investment banking as an MBA hire. Recruiting for investment banking during an MBA program is a big part of the MBA. Investment banking rankings. There are different ways to rank the investment banks. For example, best bank to work for, prestige, number of deals, total deal volume size. Since most analysts care about exit ops or placement into private equity and hedge funds or looking to do something else, the prestige rankings is probably closest to that actual ranking. You can look at the Vault Prestige rankings as a good start to understand which investment banks are generally considered top banks. If we were to drill into this even further, it actually depends on group ranking. Traditionally, Goldman Sachs, Tech Media Telecom, Morgan Stanley M&A, and some of the other Goldman groups, such as Goldman Financial Institutions Group, are some of the top recruiting groups. The reason why it is group specific and not just investment bank specific is because some investment banks may be well known for a very specific industry and recruit very well for that industry group. For example, real estate. The elite boutiques such as PJT and Evercore are also excellent recruiting groups. Separate from a recruiting standpoint, investment banking rankings can come from the client perspective. These are what's normally known as league tables. It's a slide shown by the investment banks to clients to show their own rankings and why they should be hired. This, unfortunately, is very manipulated. It's usually based on either the total number of deals that they have done for a period or the total transaction volumes measured in dollars for a certain period. Most of these league tables are manipulated so that each bank shows that they are number one. These league tables can be manipulated by specifying a certain period or including and excluding certain deals. For example, they may say deal volumes in the last 5 years if performance dropped recently to have a long-term average. Deal volume can be below a certain size for middle market investment banks, or just counting the total number of deals for a very small bank that may have a lot of deals. At the end of the day, what is most important is to understand the factors that pertains to you. And for the most part, if your goal is to do something else, then exit opportunities will be most important to you. If your goal is to stay in investment banking, and for example, you're in the M&A group, then the league tables will be more important. Like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Also, visit our website at www.wallstreetsmart.com for additional resources.